Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Site for Wight, welcoming you to this week's Talking News on Saturday, the 23rd of July, 2022. I'm talking to you this week from Rojales in Spain, whilst the weather in the UK, I believe, has turned back into a slightly duller situation. The weather here is still mid-30s, so very warm. I'm spending a couple of weeks out here with my children for a 2-week annual holiday together. Although the weather is as warm as it was in the UK a few days ago, we do of course have a swimming pool and air conditioning units, which does make it a lot more bearable. The newsletter is virtually complete. We are just waiting to hold it back an extra couple of days this month because it's the Newport Carnival tomorrow at the 100th year and we have a float. If you would like to join us, please don't hesitate to turn up at 5:45. We will be bringing the minibus, so even if you don't feel you can walk the whole way round, or even just part of it, the minibus is there and it's decorated ready for the carnival. It would be lovely to see as many people as possible there. The meeting point is 5:45 p.m. this Saturday, the 23rd of July at Church Littering. You'll easily be able to spot us if you've got someone with you, as the minibus, as I said, is decorated with our new logo and a big pair of sunglasses. And a huge thank you to the fundraising committee and Susan for getting everything ready for tomorrow. Everybody, stay safe. Thank you. Lisa, CEO, Site for Wight.
36.7 Celsius recorded on the Isle of Wight as heatwave grips the UK. From Island Echo, read by Chris. A staggering 36.7 Celsius was recorded on the Isle of Wight on Monday as an intense heatwave gripped the UK. Figures from the Isle of Wight Met Service reveal that the sky-high temperature was experienced in Northwood near Cowes. High readings were seen across the island with 36 Celsius in Haven Street, 35.8 Celsius in Porchfield and 35.8 Celsius in Gurnard. Shorewell saw 35.5 Celsius. The coolest place to be was St Catherine's Point, which was a whole 12 Celsius cooler. Island Echo warned of the level 5 heat warning, with many doubting that the island would see temperatures reaching 37 Celsius. Weather apps and other meteorological websites listed the Isle of Wight as having predicted temperatures of around 27 Celsius, some 10 Celsius less than the actual recorded figure. Darren Toogood, editor of Island Echo, has said, "Once again, Isle of Wight Met Service has come out on top and proven their worth. Many people doubted the predictions of 37 Celsius, but today's recordings show that forecasters locally were spot on as always. We are proud to continue our partnership with Isle of Wight Met, the official forecasters of Island Echo." Jamie Russell of Isle of Wight Met Service said, "We must admit we did get the temperatures a little off for the west coast of the island, as we were expecting the sea breeze to take the edge off, keeping it around 26 to 28 Celsius. But instead it reached 33 Celsius along the majority of the coastline. We saw multiple places breaching the 35 Celsius mark elsewhere, with a few localised spots seeing 36 Celsius, including Haven Street, which is very strong heat trap." I might read that last sentence again, Martin. "We saw multiple places reaching the 35 Celsius mark elsewhere, with a few localised spots seeing 36 Celsius, including Haven Street, which is very..." Sorry, Martin, I'm going to read that one more time. "We saw multiple places reaching the 35 Celsius mark elsewhere, with a few localised spots seeing 36 Celsius, including Haven Street, which is a very strong heat trap. We didn't quite hit the 37 Celsius mark. However, we did reach 36.7 Celsius in Northwood, but this wasn't a rogue reading, as it was backed up by a private station just 2 streets away that recorded 36.4 Celsius. The south coast of the island was a touch warmer than expected, with a few spots hitting the 30 Celsius mark. However, the east coast was much as expected in the mid-20s, although again, this is a fraction higher than expected. We have concluded that the higher than expected temperatures in some parts were due to lighter coastal winds than the data was suggesting, and in turn, we made a forecast based on 8 to 14 mile per hour breezes, which were in fact 4 to 9 mile per hour, and allowing the temperatures to rise a fair few degrees higher than expected. Islanders face a sticky evening. In fact, I'm going to let that end there, Martin, where it says to rise a few degrees higher than expected. Stop.
Hollywood's Benedict Cumberbatch drops in on Rural Village Show from Island Echo, read by Joyce. Hollywood star and Isle of Wight resident Benedict Cumberbatch dropped in on the 124th Brightstone and District Horticultural Society Summer Show at the weekend, much to the surprise of the locals. The show, which was held on Saturday the 16th of July, normally attracts a strong crowd, but never such high-profile celebrities. Cumberbatch, who lives in nearby Brook, can often be found in the local area and often surfs at Compton Beach. Chairman Donald Appleby posed for a photo with the Imitation Game and Sherlock Holmes star, which was then shared on the Society's Facebook page with the simple caption, "It was great to see some new faces supporting our show yesterday." It's unknown if Benedict grew his own marrows or entered any classes.
This is an article read by Terry. Goose flies into electricity pole causing fire and power cut in Arreton. Firefighters have been tackling a field fire in Arreton Thursday evening, believed to have been caused by a goose flying into an electricity pole. The incident has left some residents of the village without power. A field next to Arreton CE Primary School caught alight. Isle of Wight Radio has been told a goose flew into an electricity pole. It's believed the resulting sparks from a power line were the cause. Crews from Shanklin and Newport fire stations responded to the incident, having been called at around 6:30 p.m. The fire is now out. And there's an updated footnote. A total of 23 postcode areas are affected, it says here, by a power outage. Scottish and Southern Electricity Network, SSE, says its engineers are on site and they aim to have the power restored by 2 a.m. They were first alerted at 6:35 p.m.
This is Alison reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio entitled 15-year-old Isle of Wight boy charged with terrorism offence. A 15-year-old from the Isle of Wight is due in court in London charged with a terrorism offence. The boy from Cowes was arrested by officers from Counter-Terrorism Policing South East, CTPSE, with assistance from Hampshire Constabulary on Monday the 11th of July. He was detained on suspicion of the preparation of terrorist acts under Section 5 of the Terrorism Act 2006 and has now been charged with this offence. The boy, who cannot be named for legal reasons, has been remanded in custody. He is due to appear at Westminster Magistrates Court.
Tragedy at the seaside as holidaymaker dies on busy beach in Sandown. From Island Echo, read by Chris. A man has tragically died after being pulled from the water in front of a packed-out beach in Sandown, police have confirmed. Emergency services were deployed to the seaside town near to Sandown Pier at just before 5 p.m. on Monday afternoon. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance was scrambled to the scene and landed on the beach. Coast Guard Rescue 175 was also scrambled alongside paramedics from the Isle of Wight Ambulance Service and Coast Guards from Bembridge and Ventnor. Nearby lifeguards and police also responded. Island Echo understands the male, a holidaymaker in his 70s, was sighted in difficulty to the west of the pier before being pulled from the water on a paddleboard by a member of the public who was also on holiday. CPR was commenced on the beach and a defibrillator used in a bid to save the man's life. Despite the best efforts of everyone involved, the man's life could not be saved and he was declared deceased at the scene. Hampshire Constabulary has confirmed that the man was pulled unresponsive from the sea and has since died. Officers remain on scene as the circumstances of the death are established.
Car flung off the road in two-car crash at Culver Down. From Island Echo, read by Joyce. Police and paramedics are attending a road traffic collision involving two cars on Culver Down between Bembridge and Sandown on Thursday morning. The crash involving a Citroën C4, Grand Picasso and a Chevrolet Captiva LTZ has occurred on the bend at Bembridge Fort, with the vehicles making contact on a narrow section of road. One vehicle has been spun almost 180 degrees and has left the carriageway backwards as a result of the impact, but has been prevented from rolling down the hill by undergrowth. Emergency services were called to the scene at just before 7:30 a.m. The Isle of Wight Ambulance Service is checking over those involved, but it's understood no serious injuries have been sustained. Access to Culver Down is currently blocked at the fort, but the road is expected to reopen shortly.
This is an article from the Island Echo, read by Terry. Survey shows over 80% of residents support Beaver reintroduction on the Isle of Wight. A public consultation run by Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust earlier this year has found that the majority of those who responded would support the release of wild beavers on the island. The Trust mailed a questionnaire to every home on the island in February, asking residents for their views on a potential release of the aquatic mammals in the eastern Yar Valley. A total of 4,883 people responded to the consultation, with 89% stating they feel positive about beavers being released on the Isle of Wight. The survey results confirmed 88% of respondents believe beavers would benefit other wildlife on the Isle of Wight, while 81% of people felt the mammals would positively impact local flooding and water quality. Of those who completed the questionnaire, 73% said they thought beavers could boost the local economy on the Isle of Wight, while 87% thought the presence of beavers would contribute to people's ability to connect with nature. The public survey, which was also available to complete online, was closed after 3 months, but the consultation remains ongoing. The Trust's dedicated Beaver Recovery Project Officer, Izzy Tween, continues to engage with landowners and communities on the island to review the impacts of the proposed beaver release. Some residents have raised questions about the potential impacts of beavers on the island, especially those who live in closer proximity to a watercourse. Izzy Tween from Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust said, "It's encouraging that a majority of respondents are in favour of a beaver release on the Isle of Wight and see the benefits beavers could bring. We also recognise and value those who raised comments and concerns. We'll continue to consult and liaise closely with stakeholders, especially local landowners who may be directly impacted in the event of a release. Ultimately, as a trust, we believe a beaver release on the Isle of Wight could offer a wealth of opportunities to enhance our climate resilience, restore nature and boost the local economy for many years to come. Following the public consultation, the Trust hopes to submit a licence application, which is needed for any beaver release in the UK, to Natural England. Currently, though, Natural England are not accepting licence applications while it works with DEFRA to finalise the National Beaver Strategy after running their own public consultation last year. However, farmers generally oppose the idea, as previously reported by the Island Echo. The Trust has made a full analysis of the consultation results available on its website. To find this and to learn more about Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust's Beaver Recovery Project, visit hiwwt.org.uk/beaver-recovery-network.
This is Alison reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio entitled Isle of Wight to receive £13.5 million full fibre open reach broadband boost. 9 new locations on the Isle of Wight are set to benefit from a broadband boost as part of a £13.5 million investment by Openreach. It's estimated the upgrade will give around 45,000 more island homes and businesses access to full fibre broadband on the Openreach network. When work is finished, the company is promising the majority of people living and working in Ventnor, Ryde, Sandown, Freshwater, Newport, Shanklin, Bembridge, Wootton Bridge and Knighton will be able to contact their broadband provider for an upgrade. This adds to the work already done by the firm in Cowes, where nearly 50% of homes and businesses can already upgrade. Connie Dixon, Openreach's Regional Director for the South East, said, "Nobody in the UK is building full fibre faster, further or at a higher quality than Openreach. We're passing more than 50,000 new homes and businesses every week and installing around 800 metres of cable every minute, with our teams of highly skilled engineers working alongside our build partners to deliver some of the fastest and most reliable broadband available anywhere in the world. We've already reached 8 million homes and businesses across the UK with ultra-fast full fibre technology, including more than 800,000 across the region. But we know there's more to do, and we're committed to doing it. More than 800,000 homes and businesses in the region can already access full fibre on the Openreach network, with tens of thousands more to be built in the region before 2026. Openreach is the UK's largest digital network provider, used by the likes of BT, Sky, TalkTalk, Vodafone and Zen.
Future of Ryde's Esplanade Station revealed as part of seafront redevelopment. From Island Echo, read by Chris. Long-awaited plans for the biggest upgrade to Ryde Esplanade train and bus station in 50 years have finally been revealed. As part of the multi-million pound redevelopment of the seafront in Ryde, work is being undertaken to improve the visual impact of the town's transport interchange. Despite work having already got underway with the demolition of public toilets at Western Gardens and new paving, residents have been patiently awaiting news of what exactly will be done at the Esplanade station. It has now been revealed that the whole station will be given a major facelift, both internally and externally, in what will be the biggest upgrade to the 158-year-old station since the 1970s. Planning has been submitted to alterations and refurbishment of the existing station buildings to include new public toilets, cafe and pedestrian link to Ryde Pier. Under the plans, A new cafe with glazed frontage will be situated at the dry end of the pier with an extended covered concourse to the rear, allowing access to the new pedestrian gangway up the pier. It's in this area that the new public toilets will be situated, as well as an ATM. South Western Railway will benefit from a new waiting hall and ticket office, as well as a back office operations room and staff accommodation to include a kitchen, toilet and lockers. Meanwhile, Southern Vectis will have a ticket office, back office operations room, staff accommodation and a tourism information counter. The existing retail space will be retained and a new retail space will become available thanks to the relocation of Southern Vectis operations. Additional elements of the scheme include storage for the local community rail partnership and the installation of a large and instantly recognisable rail sign to make the presence of a railway station clearer. The plans have been submitted by the Isle of Wight Council as opposed to Network Rail.
Pier Street toilets in Sandown to reopen this week thanks to last-minute agreement. From Island Echo, read by Joyce. Toilets on the seafront at Sandown are set to reopen this week after community calls to the local town council. The public conveniences on Pier Street had been closed due to safety reasons and are part of plans for new loos, a shop and a restaurant. At a Sandown Town Council STC meeting on Monday, Clerk Richard Priest said the Town Council had negotiated with the Isle of Wight Council, which owns the building, to reopen them once safe to do so. Over the last 2 weeks, work has been carried out to make them fit for purpose, along with a deep, clean and electrical checks. In 2021, STC also worked with the Isle of Wight Council to open the toilets for the holiday season. They are splitting the cost, at least $4,000 to cover cleaning them over the summer. At the meeting, Sandown Mayor, Councillor Paddy Lightfoot, described it as a significant but unexpected investment for the STC. He said, hopefully this time next year, the new development would be complete. The Isle of Wight's Council's toilet and site regeneration plans have stalled since they were approved in 2020 and work is yet to start. The local authority is in the process of selling the site to a developer who will then complete the project.
This is an article from Island Echo, read by Terry. 3 exceptionally rare shipwrecks off the Isle of Wight and Dorset granted highest protection. 3 exceptionally rare and well-preserved shipwrecks discovered off the Isle of Wight and Dorset coasts have been granted the highest level of protection by Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries on the advice of Historic England. The 16th century shingles bank wreck NW96 and 17th century shingles bank wreck NW68 were both discovered off the Needles Channel by divers Martin Pritchard and Dave Fox and have now been designated under the Protection of Wrecks Act 1973. The 13th century mortar wreck, discovered in Poole Bay in Dorset with its cargo of Gothic Purbeck stone gravestones, is the oldest known protected wreck in English waters where hull remains can be seen. Tree ring dating of the wreck indicates that the timbers used to construct the hull are from Irish oak trees felled between 1242 and 1265 during the reign of King Henry III. The survival of 13th century vessels is extremely rare, and prior to this discovery, there are no known wrecks of seagoing ships from the 11th to the 14th century in English waters. The wreck was discovered by Trevor Small, who has operated diving charters from Poole in Dorset for the past 30 years. With the addition of these wreck sites, there are now 57 protected wreck sites in English waters. Their status means that divers need a special license administered by Historic England on behalf of the Department for Digital, Culture, Media and Sport to dive the wrecks. Their artifacts are protected and their condition is carefully monitored. The Shingles Bank wrecks. The Shingles Bank in the Needles Channel is a well-known navigational hazard for ships entering the Solent from the west. It is thought that both NW96 and NW68 became stranded on the banks before sinking. Archaeological remains of these vessels include several cannons, a large anchor, at least 50 very large lead ingots with unidentified markings, and stone cannonballs. The ingots are a fixed size and weight and would have been used as currency for trade, so they could be made into a variety of products including bullets, lead flashing on roofs and pipes. Initial research suggests the lead ingots were cast from a furnace known as a bowl. Bowls fell out of use from around 1580, suggesting the NW96 wreck dates from the 16th or very late 15th century. This theory is supported by the presence of stone cannonballs which were replaced with iron shot and were no longer used by the end of the 16th century. Analysis of the cannons indicates that one of them was cast in Amsterdam between 1621 and 1661, which helps place the NW68 wreck as a mid-late 17th century armed vessel, probably of Dutch origin. This indicates that the ship could have been associated with the Battle of Portland in 1653, when the fleet of the Commonwealth of England was attacked by the Dutch Republic during the First Anglo-Dutch War. The Netherlands was the maritime and economic power in the world during this period, so this site could help further our knowledge of 17th century seafaring activity. The finds are being investigated by archaeologists from the Maritime Archaeology Trust and Wessex Archaeology, along with the finders, Martin Pritchard and Dave Fox. Heritage Minister Nigel Huddleston said, "These fascinating shipwrecks can reveal so much to us about our natural history, and it is right that we protect them for future generations." The survival of the 13th century mortar wreck is particularly rare, with timbers dating to Henry III's reign and the 16th and 17th century shingle bank wrecks shed light on historical trading. Martin Pritchard, co-founder of the Shingles Bank wrecks, said, "I am very pleased that these shipwrecks dating to the 16th and 17th centuries have been granted the highest level of protection. They are a remarkable find." Working with Historic England, volunteer divers and archaeologists, we will continue to investigate, understand and record these wreck sites. The mortar wreck. Finds recovered from the mortar wreck include 2 Purbeck stone gravestone slabs from Dorset, with two different Gothic designs. They are in immaculate condition, and the chisel marks can still be seen. These gravestones are found in church graveyards across the south coast. They are significant because they were pre-carved and are not blank slabs, which suggests a demand for highly skilled stonemasons and their products. Other finds include a large cauldron for cooking soup, a smaller cauldron which would once had a long handle for heating water, and mugs covered in concretion, a hard solid mass which forms over underwater objects over time. The gravestone slabs would have either been carved at the quarries or at a workshop and are unpolished. One of the slabs features a wheel-headed cross, an early 13th century style, while the other features a splayed arm cross, common in the mid-13th century. Several Purbeck stone mortars used by millers to grind grains into flour have also been recovered. One theory is that the ship may have been lost on its way out from the Dorset coast. Its destination is unknown. Historic England has been working closely with Bournemouth University and Trevor Small to investigate this wreck. Irish oak was widely exported for shipbuilding during the medieval period, and Purbeck marble gravestone slabs were widely used across the south of England and were exported to Ireland and the continent. This wreck reveals the rich web of maritime trade and contacts in the Channel and Irish Sea in this period.
This is Alison reading an article from On the Wight entitled Plans to Demolish Thompson House to Make Way for New Housing. A former education centre and hospital building on the Isle of Wight is proposed to be demolished to make way for housing. If the demolition is approved, it could start as early as September 2022. Thompson House on Sandy Lane, Gatcombe, was once an education tuition centre and the base for Isle of Wight Council education staff, as well as part of the Whitecroft Hospital. However, the building, built in the 1960s, is rapidly falling into disrepair, the authority says, after the council moved out and no one moved in, becoming surplus to requirements. The Isle of Wight Council is seeking permission to demolish the building and associated buildings to remove the liability they pose in their current state, while the future of the site can be considered. The authority was given £135,000 by government last year in its Brownfield Land Release Fund to free up the Thompson House land for housing. A further 2 sites across the island in Lake and Totland were awarded a further £814,765 to make ready for development. Across the 3 parcels of land, there is the potential to build around 70 houses, but due to tight finances, the authority has been unable to take the projects forward. The sites have recently been marketed by the council as housing opportunities, with offers currently being evaluated. The current premises, the authority says, would require extensive expenditure to repair and modernise. It is thought if the demolition is approved, work would start in September and be finished by December. As well as the removal of asbestos-containing materials, the interiors would be stripped. Following demolition, the council says the ground will be levelled, covered with soil and seeded with grass. You can view the plans on 22/01204/11BPA on the council's planning register. The public consultation runs until the 29th of July. The authority recently announced it will be unable to bid for more brownfield land funding due to its lack of planning strategy.
Good morning everyone. This is Mike and also Paula. Before we start the second part of the Talking News, here is this week's society news.
Swimming has now stopped until September the 5th due to the school holidays. The last coffee and chat will be on Wednesday between 10 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. at Millbrook House. Tonight is Newport Carnival and we are entering as a charity. So if you are in Newport, please shout out and give us a wave. On August the 8th, we have a very special trip arranged on the Wet Wheels boat, leaving from Yarmouth at 12 p.m. The cost is £5 plus transport if required. If you have not been on Wet Wheels before, it is a high-speed trip on a boat especially adapted for wheelchair and disabled passengers. The spaces are very limited, so please call the office if you would like to attend. If numbers are oversubscribed, a ballot will be held.
Sorry. On August the 16th, the charity have booked a day's sailing with the Gwenelai Trust on the Scott Barder, leaving East Cowes Marina at 10 a.m. and finish at 4 p.m. Members are asked to bring their own packed lunch. The cost is £35 per person. We have spaces for 6 members to enjoy the freedom of the Solent. If you are interested, please call the office and speak to Susan for more details.
The monthly stride is on Friday. This month the walk will be led by Steve around Bryston Forest. The minibus will leave Millbrook House at 9:30 a.m. Lunch at the Sun Inn Calbourne. If you would like to join in the stride, please call Susan in the office.
The new book group is meeting back in the Lord Louis Library on Thursday the 4th of August. If you would like to join this group, it is totally free. Just call the office and we can send out a book either in CD or memory stick format. This is the last week of activities before we take our summer break, and activities will resume again in September. Stay safe and enjoy the break.
Empty shops levels shown. Newport High Street has been suffering from the economic downturn for the last few years. The COVID-19 pandemic and the move to online shopping have been factors in the decline of the county town's main shopping street. Last week, County Press Work Experience student Ethan Wenham undertook a survey of the High Street from Coppins Bridge up to Drill Hall Road Junction. He listed the total number of shops and those unoccupied. Ethan found there were a total of 108 shops, cafes, restaurants and other businesses along the road. Of these, 26 were unoccupied, with 82 functioning as active businesses. Last week, the Isle of Wight Council Cabinet agreed to partially pedestrianise part of the High Street between St James Street and Holyrood Street, with the removal of parking spaces and widened pavements. 3 parking spaces for the disabled will remain. The aim of the changes is to revitalise the town's economy.
Glamping Eco Resort Plan. Tree houses, safari lodges and tiny homes, all part of plans unveiled for an eco-friendly retreat near Yarmouth. Plans have been submitted to the Isle of Wight Council for the woodlands next to Luckett's farm at Lee Copse, a glamping proposal from Alan Short and Simon Hurst of Acorn Properties, Isle of Wight. The plans were first revealed in May 2021 after residents had concerned about the number of trees being felled at the site. Their aim is to open the resort on the main road to Yarmouth in the spring of 2024. They have owned the land for the last 3 years and, according to the website, restored and maintained the agricultural land and woodland. Included in the plans for the tourism and leisure project are spa/treatment rooms and sauna pods, a staff welfare barn, 15 tree houses, 8 safari lodges, 8 tiny homes, a restaurant, a cafe, bus stop improvements and associated infrastructure. The resort's website said it would be an all-encompassing holiday destination with unique accommodation activities, classes, wedding venue and learning for young and old. It is thought the proposal would create 50 full-time and 25 part-time employees.
Special protection given to pair of ancient ships. 400-year-old wrecks found off Needles. 2 newly discovered shipwrecks have been handed special governmental protection. Both off the Needles, they have been listed under the Protection of Wrecks Act 1973, the highest level available. It means future divers will need a special licence via Historic England to explore them. In addition, their artefacts are protected and their condition will be carefully monitored. Found on the shingle banks, the 2 vessels labelled NW96 and NW68 were believed to have run aground before they sank. One of the wrecks' cannon, a large anchor, stone cannonballs and at least 50 large lead ingots used as currency with unidentified markings were found. One of the guns was cast in Amsterdam between 1621 and 1661. NW68 is thought to be associated with the 1653 Battle of Portland, involving the Commonwealth of England and the Dutch Republic during the First Anglo-Dutch War. The other site is thought to be the remains of a 17th century armed merchant ship. Their discovery was revealed more about trading at the time. Martin Pritchard, co-founder of the Shingles Bank wrecks, said, "They are a remarkable find. Working with Historic England, volunteer divers and archaeologists, we will continue to investigate, understand and record these wreck sites." Historic England said the survival of pre-1700 ships is extremely rare and is as the unearthing of the previously unrecorded wreck sites in the Solent, making these discoveries nationally significant. Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries, on the advice of Historic England, granted protection for the 3 sites, which mean they are now 57 in English waters. High-resolution models will be developed to enable us all to virtually dive the sites. Meanwhile, The finds are being investigated by archaeologists from the Maritime Archaeological Trust and Wessex Archaeological, along with divers Martin and Dave Fox. Graham Scott, Senior Maritime Technical Specialist and Subsea Superintendent, Wessex Archaeology, said, "Congratulations to Martin and Dave. If it wasn't for them, these important sites would probably still be undiscovered." Also winning protection is the 13th century mortar wreck which sank off Dorset in Poole Bay with a cargo of Gothic Purbeck stone gravestones.
Could Chale get store back? An island village may once again have a convenience store after its previous one closed 3 years ago. Plans have been lodged with the Isle of Wight Council to build a convenience store and 7 homes off Town Lane in Chale, just down the road from the former Chale Green stores. The once much-loved village shop was unviable, according to its owner, Vern Tyerman, and its closure also saw the removal of the post office from the parish. The former village store is in the process of being turned into houses. Now a new proposal submitted by Rachel Payton could see Chale Convenience built, serving the needs of the rural community, planning documents say, by providing a highly desired service. On behalf of Mrs. Payton, a planning statement by Nova Architectural said the closest shop to Chale is in Bryston, nearly 5 miles away, and only accessible via vehicle, so there is an identified local need for one. The paddock site, at the moment, sitting behind Town Lane, is said to be moderately unmanaged grassland parcelled, becoming invaded by bramble and scrub. As part of the development, 7 bungalows and houses could be built. They would range from 2 to 4 beds. Taking into account existing neighbouring properties, the planning agents say the scheme is designed with bungalows at the centre of the plot, with 2-storey dwellings on either side to prevent any overlooking. One supportive comment has so far been left on the application, saying they were pleased to see the store plans. They said, "For too long now, the less fortunate and elderly residents of Chale have been cut off from the essential, reliable local services without having to rely on public transport."
Jigsaw Festival returns. Let's hope there are no missing pieces when a popular Jigsaw Festival returns next month. The annual Jigsaw Puzzle Festival in St James Church, East Cowes, will be held from Monday the 8th of August to Saturday the 13th of August. It will be open daily at 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. plus 2 evenings, Wednesday and Thursday, 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Once again, there'll be hundreds of made-up jigsaws on display and for sale, for the display changing every minute as puzzles are sold. Admission is £1.50, adults with accompanying children free. Light refreshments will be available in the church hall as well as a book stall.
Heartbreak and anger as vandals strike. Ventnor business owners have been left counting the cost after a night of criminal damage along the seafront last week. At the height of the summer, they have been left devastated and having to clear up the mess. Police say one man has been arrested on suspicion of causing criminal damage, arson and assault. Business owners are angry that after making several calls to 999 during the incident, they felt forced to make a citizen's arrest in the absence of any police at the scene. Officers did attend shortly after 5:40 a.m, a police spokesman said. Among the businesses affected were seafront restaurant Smoking Lobster, newly renovated Blake's Tea Hut, and the Beach Safety and First Aid Hut. There were smashed windows and doors, and a tub of black gloss paint tipped over the outdoor furniture. A fire was started at the old bus station on Pier Street too. One resident, who helped with the clear-up, said, "So much love and hard work has gone into the seafront for this busy summer season, and we don't want this mindless individual released back here or anywhere on the island." A 65-year-old man from Norfolk has been bailed until August the 11th, pending further inquiries. A police spokesperson said, "Officers are continuing to take statements from those affected by the damage and will follow other lines of inquiry as appropriate."
No red arrows or fireworks. When Cowes Week returns from July the 30th, it will bring plenty of sailing, but no fireworks nor a display by the Red Arrows. For crews taking part, Cowes Yacht Haven will host the Cowes Week opening party on July the 31st, wristbands to enter. The official Cowes Week Competitors Ball will be on August the 3rd at the Royal Ocean Racing Club, with the Queen's Platinum Jubilee and red and white and blue theme as its theme. Prize giving happens on Friday, August the 5th, followed by another party. Cowes Parade, Cowes Yacht Haven and Northwood House will all host on-stage entertainment, including from Blonde Bombshell, Black Daniels, Stage Fright, The Dead Perrys and more. Tuesday, August the 2nd is Women's Day, who make up around 40% of competitors. Events will include a question and answer about world-class female sailors with the Magenta Project. Family Day is on Sunday, July the 31st. Among the attractions will be Wight Tricks Academy from 12 till 3 p.m, Regatta Village Cowes Parade, where children can learn gymnastics, acrobatics and more on an air floor. Black Gang Chine's Rawsome Dinosaur Show will be there between midday and 1 p.m.
Fines for littering. 2 islanders have been forced to pay more than £400 in court fees for dumping cigarette butts on a street in Southampton. The cases of Paul Ryan, aged 36, of the Sidings, Cowes, and Joddy Baker, 48, of Elm Grove, Newport, were heard by Portsmouth magistrates. The men were charged with throwing down a cigarette on above bar. Ryan's charge relates to March the 1st, 2022, while Baker's was from March the 17th. Both were fined £220 and ordered to pay costs of £168.75 and a £34 surcharge.
Family are rescued. A family and their dog were rescued after getting stranded on Fort Albert Beach on Tuesday. Yarmouth RNLI went to their rescue after they were cut off by the tide. A spokesperson for HM Coast Guard said, HM Coast Guard sent Yarmouth lifeboat to aid of the family who got cut off by the tide or were at least in danger of it. The lifeboat picked them up and took them to Colwell Bay.
The burger, where less equals more. An unusual addition to an Isle of Wight menu has found itself the subject of much discussion and an appearance on the Radio 2 Jeremy Vine show. It came down to the question, would you pay more to have something removed from your burger in a restaurant? It all started when the George Hotel in Yarmouth printed on its menu it would cost £2 to add or remove any ingredient from its £21.50 George burger. Consumer journalist Harry Wallop asked his Twitter followers to discuss the merits of asking £2 to remove an ingredient. After this, colleagues noticed the unusual pricing on the menu. The story was then picked up by The Vine Show, hosted by Vanessa Feltz. Vanessa asked listeners for their thoughts and was joined by Mr. Wallop, who said it was outrageous. He said when they were already charging £21.50 for a burger, one would hope they had fairly competent people in the kitchen capable of removing items from the burger. A customer on TripAdvisor had 5 days before given a negative review about the George burger due to the removal price. David B. wrote, very expensive, e.g. £21 for a burger, when asking for the burger without the bun, save wasting a good bun, we were told it would then be 23. Yes, £2 more for us to not have the bun. Amazing. So we had the bun and gave it to the seagulls. The hotel said the whole thing had been a mix-up and the price addition should never have appeared. It was showing on the Georgia website on Monday morning but had been changed by Monday afternoon. Spokesperson said this was an unfortunate instance of an employee misinterpreting a discussion regarding extra toppings for the burger and taking it upon themselves to add a sentence to the menu which made no sense at all. As soon as the mistake was spotted, the menus were all reprinted. The George is a high-end beach club restaurant in a smart hotel with a private beach. We use locally sourced high-quality ingredients and employed skilled, well-paid staff. The cost of £21.50 for a burger is what we need to charge. The George is owned by Prince Harry's friend, Howard Spooner.
Lot of bottle needed for bridge. A new footbridge has been erected in Newchurch and it's made from thousands of plastic bottles. Struct Team, the Cowes-based composite engineering consultancy, and Apex Composite Structures, a ride-based composite manufacturer, worked in partnership to design and engineer the 12.5 metre bridge. The structure means walkers no longer need to navigate the narrow and busy stretch of road through the village. Newchurch Parish Council commissioned the bridge and were seeking an economical and robust solution for this section of Nora's Way. A dedicated rights-of-way opened in 2019 by Nora Boswell's family in her memory. Struct Team and Apex's engineers specified lightweight materials and sustainable manufacturing methods wherever possible to allow for efficient production, easy transportation and rapid installation. It is estimated the composite bridge will need very minimal upkeep and will not need to be replaced for 100 years. The bridge's foam core is made from 30,000 reprocessed plastic bottles. George Downer, director of Apex, said by selecting plastic bottles they have achieved a 33% reduction in CO2 emissions.
Sandown eyesore must be tidied up. The eyesore Ocean Hotel in Sandown will have to be tidied up after Isle of Wight magistrates threw out its appeal against an enforcement notice last week. Phoenix Commercial Property Developments, that's PCPD, were fighting the notice issued to them by the Isle of Wight Council earlier this year to clean up the dilapidated eyesore on Sandown Esplanade and High Street. PCPD, however, appealed the notice to the Magistrates' Court and paused the tidy up order. They argued the condition of the land did not adversely affect the council's land. The requirements of the notice were too much, and the time period in which to take action fell short of what should reasonably be allowed. The appeal was due to be heard at trial on August the 3rd, but after PCPD failed to comply with the timeline set out by the court to swap witness statements and exhibits with the council by June the 23rd, the court requested the matter be brought before magistrates again. Representing the council, Edward Elton said the council tried to contact PCPD via email and the registered address on Company's House, but received no response. The council's paper bundle physically sent to the address was returned to the authority. Following that, the Isle of Wight court contacted PCPD, giving them 48 hours to contact the authority, which they failed to do. Addressing the court, Mr. Elton told magistrates it was their duty not to needlessly prolong cases, and with no other party present, called for the appeal to be thrown out. Agreeing with Mr. Elton, presiding magistrate Paul Gain said PCPD had ample opportunity to make its thoughts and presence felt by email or by communicating with the court and council. He said none of that had happened, so the appeal was dismissed. The magistrates determined PCPD will pay £2,000 towards the council's legal costs. Sandown councillor Ian Ward said he was really pleased with the outcome and the decision the magistrates made not to allow PCPD to carry on and on. The enforcement notice will now start again, meaning PCPD have 2 months from July the 15th to comply with the 13 actions of the Section 215 notice and 4 months to finish all 15, which include cutting back vegetation, removing building materials and cleaning windows.
Council updated on the floating bridge dispute. The long legal tussle over the troubled floating bridge may soon be coming to an end, according to the councillor responsible for sorting out the issues. Councillor Phil Jordan, who holds the Isle of Wight Council's Cabinet's transport portfolio, told councillors at Wednesday evening's full council meeting that he hoped to be able to make an announcement in the very near future in a short number of weeks. He said there were still minor details to be resolved, but they were not central to the dispute. Councillor Ian Ward, who was responsible for the transport under the previous Conservative administration, referred to an independent report he commissioned which concluded the vessel was badly designed and badly built. The Cross Medina service has been plagued with frequent mechanical and technical problems ever since Floating Bridge 6 was launched in 2017.
Island Deputy Lieutenant Jane Ball dies, aged 83. A Deputy Lieutenant of the Isle of Wight who served the community in many ways has died at the age of 83. Jane Ball, née Baird, was born in Lanarkshire, Scotland, on July the 16th, 1938, to Colonel David and Frida Baird, and died on the Calbourne family farm she loved. Having spent the war years on the family estate in Caithness, the family were reunited after her father completed his final mission of restoring coal production in occupied Germany. Her childhood was spent mostly in Durham, where her father ran a coal mine. Educated in Northumberland, she developed a passion for the outdoors and travel. Following school, and despite being one of the last debutantes presented to the Queen, she decided she needed to see far more of the world before any thoughts of settling down. She joined airline BAOC and worked on the front desk initially at the Heathrow and then out in the Far East. It was while she was in Hong Kong she met Michael Ball, a shipping broker with Ben Line Shipping. However, their romance did not blossom until after their return. She to London and him to the Isle of Wight to take over the family building firm, James Ball and Son. They were married in Chelsea in 1966 and moved into their first home, Merlin's Cottage in Calbourne. Michael sold the firm and took over the tenancy of Ashen Grove Farm, Calbourne, in 1969 with Jane and 2 children under 3. Despite neither having any agricultural background, they slowly built up the dairy farm from 25 to over 100 cows. Working as a team to expand and then finally purchase the farm in 1986, Jane supported Michael as he became chairman of the Isle of Wight NFU, chairman of the Magistrates' Bench, Vice Lord Lieutenant and High Sheriff. None of this would have been possible without Jane's sterling organisational and hosting skills. She herself was on the Isle of Wight NSPCC committee, the Calbourne Ladies' Choir and the WI. She was soon asked to be a Deputy Lord Lieutenant for the county in her own right. After the untimely death of Michael in 1998, she ran the farm on her own, taking it in a new direction and continuing her passion for nature by rewilding much of the land. She was also known for her fierce strength, never more so when faced with her long battles with cancer. Jane was first diagnosed with breast cancer in 1984, and while she won this battle, she then had to face its return in 1996 and 1998. Having now defeated cancer 3 times, she was more sanguine when it came to diagnosis of leukemia in 2012. Told she had 6 months to live, she responded by saying she was far too busy having to play with 3 small grandchildren and was already planning her 80th birthday in 4 years' time. Never complaining and never slowing down, her party with her family and friends was a triumphant rebuff to the beastly disease. She was also blessed in that Tom Fenwick, an old family friend and widower, became her partner and fellow explorer. They took a canal barge through the French rivers every year, and even though now increasingly frail, managed a final trip together in May. She leaves Tom, her 2 children Nicola and Charles, and 6 grandchildren, Ella, Laura, Edward, George, Ranulph and Sasha. A service will be held at All Saints Church at Kelbourne at 2 p.m. today.
More support for victims of abuse. Victims and survivors of domestic and sexual abuse across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight will have access to enhanced levels of support following the successful bid to the Ministry of Justice. Additional annual funding totalling more than £850,000 will be made available until the end of 2024 to pay for 6 independent domestic abuse advocates and 1 independent sexual violence advisor to support victims and their children. The bid was made by the Office of the Police and Crime Commission, the PCC, and the posts will be provided by the Specialist Support Organisation. PCC Donna Jones said, "These devastating crimes do not just affect adults, which is why I am so pleased to announce the addition of advocate posts specifically supporting young people. These services ensure victims and survivors are listened to no matter their circumstances or whether they choose to pursue a criminal justice route or not." Jane Hardy, Area Manager for the U Trust, said, "The U Trust were thrilled to be awarded funds from the Ministry of Justice to help address domestic violence and abuse for adults and children living on the Isle of Wight. Our Paragon team on the island offer emotional and practical support for all victims and work closely with other agencies. We know that these additional posts will continue to support us to meet the needs of individuals experiencing abuse to live a life without fear."
Council to solve Wight Link cash ban. Can the Isle of Wight Council step in to help islanders struggling to use Wight Link due to the ferry firm's cash ban? That was the question councillors were asking at a meeting on Thursday last week. Since the start of the pandemic, the Cross-Solent operator stopped taking cash to protect its customers and staff from the spread of the virus. Now, nearly 2.5 years later, the business is still running on card payments only, an issue raised by several disgruntled residents who would like to pay at the terminal using cash. You can pay online using PayPal, in terminals using card, and smart pay features on phones and other devices, as well as through Wight Link call centre, where debit and credit cards are accepted. Councillor Warren Drew, representative for Ryde South East, asked yesterday whether the council could do more to address the accessibility issue in light of the authority's own inclusive digital strategy. Speaking at the Policy and Scrutiny Committee for Neighbourhoods and Regeneration, Councillor Drew said it was something the council could address, being more robust in supporting the rights of residents. He questioned whether the council needed to look at the implications of the Equality Act. Deputy Leader to the council, Councillor Ian Stevens, said the council takes pride in the relationship they have with ferry companies, but they were not 100% comfortable with some of the decisions made. He said Cabinet members would make sure island residents and businesses would not be disadvantaged. The council's Regeneration Director, Chris Ashman, said the pandemic had been helpful in the last few years in building relationships, but that it also exposed challenges. He told the committee, While the council does not have the authority to tell the ferry operators what to do, they can use their influence to help them through collaboration to get the balance right.
Free sports on offer. West Wight Sports and Community Centre, WWSCC, is providing free children's sports activities to vulnerable families this summer. A grant from the Daisy Rich Trust has allowed the centre to offer places to families who may not otherwise be able to access sports. Centre manager Claire Griffin said, "As well as the immediate physical health benefits, sports can lead to a lifetime of friendship and being part of a community. It also improves mental health and well-being and supports children's wider personality development in all areas. Now more than ever, families are struggling to pay for activities or may have other challenges that make things difficult." The centre works closely with West Wight Community Connector Adam Tucker, who supports people across the locality to live fulfilling lives. Building on this unique network and relationships will allow as many children as possible who need support to access the free activities. Sports and activities on offer include swimming lessons, mermaids, soft archery, snorkelling, fencing, raft racing, pickleball, climbing, kayaking, sports club and diving. All activities are also available to book and pay for. Applications for free sessions should be made to ian.mcandrew@westwight.org.uk. Skateboarding is also on offer through John Cattle's Skate Club, a free of charge girls only Dynamos cricket session will also run throughout the holidays and can be booked by visiting clubspark/dynamos/course.
Stop Airbnb to ease housing crisis. An Isle of Wight councillor is calling on people renting their properties through Airbnb to think of others and provide housing for islanders instead. In a meeting of the Council's Corporate Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Michael Lilly said, "Everyone needed to work together to fix the island's housing crisis by solving the real issues which have created it." He highlighted the increasing cost of bringing building materials to the island, the withdrawal of private houses from rental sector, and the increasing number of second homes. Similar to authorities in Cornwall, Councillor Lilly said, "The Isle of Wight Council should be speaking to government and seeing if legislation could be brought into to protect the island from second homes." He said the council should be using the forums it has with landlords, developers and housing associations to say if they are on the island, they should work with the council to solve the crisis and provide housing for future generations. Councillor Lilly also said they need to bring the communities together and ask people to stop using their properties for Airbnb, instead providing houses for others. His speech was during discussions to the council's efforts to contribute to affordable housing and the draft island planning strategy. The number of houses the council proposes to buy this year to provide temporary accommodation, namely 25, was criticised and branded pitiful by Councillor Joe Robertson, leader of the Conservatives at County Hall, when there were more than 2,500 people on the council's housing register. Councillor Ian Stevens, Housing Cabinet member, said islanders would understand the council has to do its due diligence and be careful when spending public money. He said they were not heartless, and if he had an open wallet, he would look after all those on temporary accommodation. Councillor Stevens said he was unhappy with the position the council was in, neither succeeding or failing. He said they were not putting all their eggs in one basket to acquire properties to help the council's housing needs with the 5 or 6 different means and the option of building.
Island obituary. Idana Minghella. Jazz singer, songwriter and scriptwriter Idana Minghella has died in Italy following a brave battle with cancer, aged 63. Idana was the daughter of Minghella ice cream founder Eddie, who recently celebrated his 101st birthday. She grew up in Ryde, attending St Therese Presentation Convent and Ryde High School, before going on to Brunel University and King's College University of London, gaining a PhD in psychology. For many years she taught psychology to nurses, specialising in mental health issues before becoming a freelance consultant. Idana was passionate about playing and singing music and made her debut with the CD Still on My Feet, which was released in 2011, and the album was dedicated to her much-loved family and to her late brother Anthony, a film director. Idana was famous for her voice and for her lauded performances at music events. Her second album, All or Nothing, was a tribute to Billie Holiday. Her funeral was held in Lerici, Liguria, Italy, on Saturday. She had lived in Puglia, a village in the district of Lerici, for several years. She is survived by her partner, Heather.
Feeling hot? Not with these icy tales. Have you been feeling the heat this week? Well, there's a few photos of snow in days gone by, with snippets from the County Press archive to remind us what it feels like being cold. In 1958, Edwin Holbrook wrote to the County Press with his recollections of life in and around Porchfield. I remember the snowstorms in January 1881, when all roads were completely blocked, with an average depth of 6 feet and drifts of up to 15 or 20 feet when walking to work at Vittlefields Farm on the morning after the storm. We got there by walking over the covered hedges. Things weren't much better in 1947. It had been the coldest February on record, with temperatures as low as minus 21 degrees centigrade. And that was in March. The County Press reported icebergs in Bembridge Harbour. For the previous fortnight, small vessels and ships on their moorings at St Helens Quay have been hemmed in by ice. Ice at St Helens, the fresh water froze, and large blocks of ice were seen floating on the sea. These collected until a field of some 20 acres was formed, and this eventually froze into a solid mass. Pieces broke away on Sunday, forming miniature icebergs, some of them 15 feet square and 2 feet high. In the last week of December 1962, the island was struck by another blizzard, which was followed by 2 months of snow and ice with temperatures of minus 15 degrees centigrade. The county press for January the 5th, 1963 reported, "A blizzard, one of the worst in living memory, struck the island on Saturday night. Deep snowdrifts isolated some towns and villages for several days. Bus services were seriously affected. The going was particularly difficult in the Godshill district, where giant drifts developed. Shortly before 8 p.m, it was decided that all bus services should be suspended. Notices were flashed on Newport cinema screens and buses left Newport in an attempt to take passengers home, but after many of them were forced to turn back, the blizzard left fantastic snowdrifts, one extending from Bryston to Shorewell, burying the road to a depth of 10 feet. Finally, snowstorms in 1891 brought the island to a halt. For some opportunity knocked. Messrs. Whittington and Harvey's men were obliged to temporarily abandon a van in the snowdrifts at Nunnery Lane on Monday evening. The van was recovered on Thursday, but not so the beer, which had formed a portion of the contents. Keep cool.
A Few of My Least Favourite Things by Jim Gibbons. Room 101 in Orwell's book 1984 was the torture chamber to which opponents of the regime were sent to experience their worst fears. A very good TV show was made where guests chose the things or people they would like to send there, and in this article I'm filching the plot. Here are my 10 worst, last of course. Eggs, well, they taste eggy, don't they? Even when smothered with Daddy's sauce. Salt included in food. Who are these people who keep putting salt in our food? I never asked anybody to do that, did you? If you're a salt addict, you'd want to put it on fresh before eating so you can taste it and know how much you are getting. People on trains and ferries who drown out public announcements which are useful to other passengers. Characters on TV who storm into operating theatres, or when a medic says XXX is critically injured and we don't yet know how it will go, say, but he will be all right. I blame bad behaviour in ET departments on soap operas who persuade the public that it is reasonable to act in this way. Documentary TV programmes, mostly science programmes, which creep at a snail's pace and keep repeating themselves. This is a cheap way of stretching a 15-minute programme to fill an hour. The absurd fake tension built into programmes such as Strictly by saying the winner is, pause for 30 seconds, Fred and Sheila Gerbil. John McEnroe and the Wimbledon authorities who gravely kowtowed to him, and the BBC who then thought it reasonable to inflict him on the viewers. People who make protests against anything by inflicting damage on those who disagree with them. There has never been a time when it was easier to make your opinions clear to our representatives. I do not exclude political demonstrations. There should be effective laws and enforcement thereof against obstruction. English literature as imposed on school children. This has the effect of putting people off Shakespeare and Dickens et al. For life, instead of letting kids find the great writers in their own time. And finally, TV controllers, mostly but not exclusively BBC, who blithely counsel advertised programmes. How many times have you seen something in the listings and said, I must see that, or I'll record that for another time, and found it has disappeared from the time slot without any explanation. Bring back the stocks or pillory and provide the infuriated viewer with a supply of rotten tomatoes and dead cats. It was Margaret Thatcher who commented, "It's a funny old world," on the day of her enforced retirement. Now, who said television is not for appearing on, but looking at?
Axehead's treasure haul could return to the island. A hoard of 25 socketed axeheads found in Bryston in May 2019 has been officially declared as treasure. The hoard is currently being looked after by the British Museum in London, but the Isle of Wight Heritage Service hopes to acquire it for local display. Also containing 7 fragments of copper alloy, it is the one of the largest hauls of its kind to be found on the Isle of Wight, and is the largest recorded on the Portable Antiquities Scheme. The axeheads are all of Sompting type. This is named after the Sompting hoard discovered in 1946 and dating to around 700 to 600 BC. What do the axeheads look like? Sompting type axeheads are characterized by the single D-shaped loop attachment, a straight or slightly flared cutting edge, clear casting seams, a pronounced rim around the socket mouth, and decorations of 3 or 5 lines ending in raised dots on both faces, known as ribbon and pellet ornamentation. 2 or more of these features can be found on all the axeheads within the Bryston hoard, however. Corrosion means they will need to be cleaned by specialists before other features appear. What other features of treasure have been found on the Isle of Wight? This is not the first haul of its kind on the island. In 1874, 31 pawl staves, that's axeheads, from early Bronze Age were found at Fairlea during a railway cutting. In 1900, 30 socketed axes were found during the construction of the railway station at Steep Hill in Ventnor. In 2014, 11 socketed axeheads were discovered in Arreton. What sets this hoard apart? The 2019 Bryston hoard is better preserved and contains more complete axeheads that the Arreton find. While the Arreton hoard contains several different types of axeheads, the Bryston hoard appears to contain only the Sompting type. More work is needed to confirm if there are variations. Before declaring the haul as treasure on July the 4th, the Isle of Wight coroner, Caroline Summeray, heard evidence from the island's Finds Liaison Officer, Lewis Ferrero. A treasure declaration means the finder must offer items for sale to a museum at a price set by an independent board of experts. However, if there is no interest in buying it, the finder is allowed to keep it. Thanking the man who quickly alerted the experts to his discovery, Mr. Ferrero said, "We would like to emphasise to the public how important it is to stop digging and call the Finds Liaison Officer as soon as it's clear you've found a hoard. By calling us at that point, we will be able to perform a quick assessment and excavation. We can determine whether these items were originally inside a container or not, record the items as they were found, and even work out how the items were deposited, little by little or all at once. The sooner we're called in, the more information we will be able to collect."
Ukraine fundraising concert. Fantastic fundraising concert for Ukraine with the dance preachers, two big violins, Nina Plapp and George Bone, and the rug band. Ukrainian dance will be performed by the Joel Morris Dance Academy. Delicious Ukrainian food included, and you bring your own bottle. Sunday, July the 24th at 7 p.m. at the Depository, 23 Nelson Street, Ryde. Tickets £15 from Moncton Arts. Call 07515 284460.
Speakers announced. The Isle of Wight Literary Festival has announced some of the speakers for this year's festival to be held at Northwood House, Cowes, from October the 6th until the 9th. The festival, whose main sponsor is Red Funnel, was first held in 2012 and provides a far-reaching eclectic programme designed to attract a wider audience and increase the cultural richness of the island. Speakers include Robert Hardman, a best-selling author and writer of television documentaries about the monarchy, Tracy Borman, a historian, author and broadcaster and a regular presenter at the festival, and Ingrid Stewart, a leading royal biographer and commentator and editor-in-chief of Majesty magazine. Also appearing will be Hugo Vickers, an acknowledged expert on the royal family, archaeologist and TV presenter Dr. Ben Robinson and Dr. Maggie Aderin-Pocock, space scientist and presenter of the BBC's The Sky at Night. Programme Director Julia Dams said, "Over the coming weeks we will be announcing many more exciting speakers in a rich and varied programme of over 50 speakers offering something for all. Festival goers will be choosing between sessions examining history, medicine, gardening, crime fiction, travel, technology, maritime adventure, politics and much more. Full details of the programme will be announced on the IsleWhiteLiteraryFestival.com, where you can also sign up for the festival newsletter.
Into the Woods. Modern classic Into the Woods will showcase some of the very best island talent, supported by a live orchestra, professional costumes and a brand new set design. Shanklin Theatre on July the 26th and 27th at 7 p.m. Tickets cost £15 for adults and £11 for children. Visit shanklintheatre.com to book or call 868000.
A Christian festival at the County Showground. The Lionheart Festival is coming to the Isle of Wight County Showground at Cowes next weekend. It's a new festival of Christian music with leading national and international musicians and songwriters, including Graham Kendrick, the father of modern worship music, alongside local groups. There will be a line-up of 15 groups and individuals over the weekend, including Roger Samuels, who has been on The Voice UK, and Amy Faith Morley, as well as music. The organisers promise a weekend of guest speakers, fun prayer, creative activities, camping, relaxing, laughter and worship. The Lionheart Festival offers something for everyone with a children's ministry, Limitless Kids, hosted by experienced husband and wife duo, Ben and Esther, and their team. Running over 3 days, from Friday, July the 15th to Sunday, July the 17th, It will be the first of its kind on the island. It is headed up by Joe Shermer and Laura Stewart-Smith, with a team of trustees, volunteers and helpers from across the island, and is also supported by churches and businesses. For a limited amount of time, tickets are buy one get one free and are available at lionheartfestival.co.uk or on the gate.
Gospel concerts. Medina Community Choir will be giving its final 2 concerts in the summer of July the 30th at 7:30 p.m. at Newport Minster and on July the 31st at 3 p.m. at St Catherine's Church, Ventnor. Tickets at £7 each are available via medinacommunitychoir.org.uk. A raffle and refreshments will also help raise funds for the choir and choir equipment.
And now we move on to the letter columns for this week. Proper NHS planning is needed. This is a letter from Hans Bromwich at Cowes. Dear Editor, it must be abundantly clear by now, even to the stupidest of NHS executives, that providing adequate provision for NHS services is not a precise science. Demand ebbs and flows depending on circumstances that continually change. That is why extra provision that can be brought into play when desperately needed is not only sensible but essential if services are to be maintained at a high safety level and not collapse. So let's have no more excuses or pleas to stay away from the NHS, paid for by our taxes. Get your act together, stop penny pinching, engineering crisis and waiting lists designed to drive patients towards private medicine, and start providing safe, timely NHS care for all those who require it when they need it.
A plea for Sister Patricia's poems for book. A letter by Annie Higgins of Knighton. I am a friend of Sister Patricia Bolton of the Sisters of Mercy, who was for many years the head teacher at St Thomas of Canterbury Primary School in Carisbrooke. Sister Patricia is now being cared for at the Order's Nursing Convent in Hull. With her permission and that of the Order, I've been collecting as much of her poetry as I can locate, with the hope of publishing it. Any proceeds would go to the Sisters of Mercy. I already have 97 of her poems and know her to have been a prolific writer, so I'm sure there are more. Have any county press readers got copies of Sister Patricia's poetry that they could send me? To avoid duplications, titles would be useful initially. Please email titles of any Sister Patricia's poems you may have to Kate Young at the County Press on katie@iwcpmail.co.uk and they will pass them on.
Beefs and bouquets with an island twist. This is Dr. W. Thompson of Yarmouth. A very pleasant visit to the Tandem Tea Rooms in Bryston on Sunday reconnected me with the past and the idea via a communication channel of voicing appreciation or criticism following my experience locally. When I worked in Canada years ago, there was no television and only a radio with one channel in our underground basement flat. The radio channel was extremely limited in its coverage and scope, but huge in its range, connecting remote outposts with strange sounding names such as Yellowknife, Bear Paw, Dawson Creek and White Mud Creek. One of the radio programs was called Beefs and Bouquets. People living in these lonely, remote outposts were surrounded by prairies stretching for miles, isolated and without neighbours, with just bears and wolves for company. They were living in extremes, hot in the summer and as low as 46 degrees in the winter. They would phone in to the radio station and say, "I have a beef about the delivery of my post," or "I have a bouquet for the kind men who helped me when my truck was stuck in the snow." So, returning to Sunday and to Bryston, the other extreme, the pretty village, winding lanes, thatched cottages with not a bear or wolf in sight, I was so overwhelmed by the kindness shown by both the owners of the tandem tea rooms and the B&B Wolvesley house, but also with the customers when we stopped by for a snack. The homemade food was delicious. The kindness and help with mobility issues was second to none. This experience prompted me to air my appreciation and recall those days in Canada, and specifically bouquets, in this case a huge virtual bouquet. So thank you to the kind owners, the biker and another young man who patiently transferred my husband from car to table and back. After a break in the sun and sitting under an umbrella in very pretty surroundings, enjoying a little treat, made a precious occasion with care, and by everyone going the extra mile.
Why Penny? A letter written by P. Birkenstock of Wellow. Last week I wondered why would our Bob come out so swiftly to support Penny Mordaunt. Was it pure selfish ambition? Junior ministerial promotion has passed Bob by in Boris's government, so it is unlikely Sunak or Truss are going to offer him anything. Tom Tugendhat is a serious ex-military man, so probably sees our Bob as a lightweight. Sorry, Bob. The fifth candidate, whose name completely escapes me, seemed a non-starter. So Bob's only chance to climb the slippery pole was Penny Mordaunt, though whose arrogance was laid bare on Sunday morning with her inability to accept that Britain had a veto over Turkey's desire to join the EU when we were part of the European Union. Also, she was neither prepared to say ahead of the election how she would help those struggling in the current economic crisis, because in true blue fashion it's probably nothing, which will appeal to hard right-wing Tories, but is probably not the kind of change many people are looking for in the Conservative Party ahead of the next general election. But then again, what do I know?
Live and let live. Chris Morris Perry from Ride. I've been watching the leadership beauty pageant with interest and depressive resignation. It's a pity how much American and general populist influence is having on the tone and stances taken. Today, trans issues and gender politics are centre stage and used to smear one of the candidates. As a gay man, I know how hurtful and divisive using our communities as a weapon to beat others that it is to us. It's time to live and let live and stop concentrating on what you can't change. We're here, get over it. I hope you can remind your colleagues and candidates of this and instead concentrate on what they can change, such as the cost of living, levelling up and establishing a fair, just and above all efficient migration system which has been lacking for decades.
Cash is legal tender too. A letter by E.M. Barrow of Northwood. Until the incidents in recent weeks with businesses refusing to accept cash, I was under the illusion that all coins and Bank of England notes were legal tender and that, subject to a limit on the number of coins, you cannot pay £20 in 1p pieces, sellers were obliged to accept them. Recent incidents involving Wightlink and the Isle of Wight Council's parking meters made me realise I was wrong. When was the law changed? I was paid in cash until about 1965, when I was bullied into accepting bank credit for my salary. I admit that on occasion it is now convenient to use a card to make a payment by phone, but that should be voluntary. Legal tender should mean legal tender, and the actions of both Wightlink and the Isle of Wight Council should be illegal.
And that is the end as far as we're concerned. We hope you found it interesting. We wish you farewell. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
The In Touch programme follows, and the scaffolding news follows that. The cost of living crisis, cornea transplant delays. In Touch. Prior to the current cost of living crisis, the Royal National Institute of Blind People found that 1 in 5 blind and partially sighted people had difficulty in making ends meet. People with sight loss already have extra living costs and are more reliant on benefits than others as a result of low employment rates. Recently, the government have introduced financial aid and have increased benefits, but the RNIB say that the measures don't go far enough. We hear the story of Alec Ramzan, who has been struggling with the cost of living crisis, and we speak to David Oldwinkle, who is the Director of Insight and Customer Voice at the RNIB, about the problems they are hearing and their campaign. The cornea is a very delicate part of the eye. It is essentially the surface through which you see. So if it becomes scarred or damaged in any way, what you see can become increasingly impaired. The cornea can be replaced though, and the effects can be dramatic, but the supply of donated corneas has not kept up with demand. Currently, 1 in 10 people on the NHS organ donor register have indicated that they do not wish to donate their corneas, making donations low and waiting times for replacements high. We hear about the causes behind this and the implications for people waiting from Kyle Bennett, who is the Assistant Director of Tissue and Eye Services at NHS Blood and Transplant. We also hear from Shelley Haig, who recently had her corneas replaced. She tells us about the impact this has had on her life.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. Tonight, the appeal for people to donate their corneas. We hear from the patients who need them and why waiting lists continue to be so long.
It was an anxious time for me because I knew that the only way to help me was to have a corneal transplant. I was losing more and more vision. The pain was getting worse.
But first, the subject that's on everyone's lips, the cost of living crisis. But does it have particular implications for visually impaired people? With double-digit inflation upon us, only the very comfortably off remain completely untouched. But some groups in society are harder hit than others. Obviously, the less you have, the more you'll feel the pinch. But the RNIB is arguing that even at the very best of times, visually impaired people have added expenses. Public transport, assistive technology, and the fact that it's harder to spot bargains and money-saving opportunities online, for example. Alex Ramzan is partially sighted and, despite persistent efforts, is unemployed. He joins us on the line. Alex, tell me about the effect of the cost of living crisis on you.
It's had quite a large effect on me. Having some vision, ideally I'd like to have as much light on in a room as possible. But obviously due to the rise in prices, I pretty much turn all my lights off during the day and I really turn them on if I'm eating food. I am quite lucky that I know my flat relatively well and I know where everything is.
And decent lighting is a crucial thing for you?
Yeah, definitely for me.
What other kinds of things? I think you have to use quite a lot of public transport.
I do. I live in a city. I tend to use buses probably 50% of the time, but the other 50% is obviously taxis and trains. I have had it where I've had to cancel. I've had to cancel things because I just can't simply get there by cab. I just can't afford the cab fare. And one of my roles with a quite a well-known charity is I go into people's houses and I help them with tech support, and obviously I have to do train travel for that to get to where they are. Yes, the charity does reimburse me the cost of doing that, but it does take a while, so I'm also out of pocket there as well. So I've had to, cut back by a fair margin.
How much financial help do you get?
So I get a couple of benefits. I'm still on DLA.
That's disability living allowance, just for those who don't know.
And I'm also on, I think it's called employment support allowance or something like that. So that does help. It hasn't been for lack of trying to find a job to do. But as people will probably know, it's quite hard to find employment when you have a disability. So I try and do the best I can.
You mentioned the business about the lights. Are there other things that you've had to stop doing, other ways of trying to keep your costs down? So
I have pretty much scrapped my Virgin TV completely, which is obviously a luxury. Obviously, I have to have broadband. I can't be without broadband. I probably take maybe 2 showers a week just to cut down on the water. I don't dry my clothes in the dryer. I hang dry them now, which for me is a tad difficult because sometimes I can't quite put them on the clothes horse. So that's quite a change, where before I could just chuck them in the dryer and have no issues.
One issue that is sometimes raised is the fact that there's a lot of information now online about, best deals, bargains, percentages off, the banks offer it. Is that something which you feel you miss out on?
As a general rule, I think we do miss out on quite a bit. This could be for a variety of reasons. This could be that the main deals, either the shop or the company offers, are quite low down the page. So if you use a screen reader, it will take you an age to get down there. It's quite often, even though these companies put things in what they think is large print, it isn't always, in our terms, large print. Also, things like colour could be a factor. So, if a certain company uses like a yellow background with black writing, that's a big help. But to keep in with their company branding, they might not use the right colours. So that's also a factor. Normally, I think websites in general are just not accessible at all.
Alex, stay with us. The RNIB has launched a campaign to draw attention to this. Listening to Alex has been David Oldwinkle, who is Director of Insight and Customer Voice at the RNIB. David, how typical are those points made by Alex?
Sadly, Peter, it's all too typical. We're hearing from people day in, day out of the additional hardship, the extra costs of their disability, but just the difficulties they're having in making ends meet with the continuing, it seems, spiralling prices that everybody is facing. And we recognise that everyone's facing this issue, but we also have to recognise that a large proportion of blind and partially sighted people are living in the lowest income households, mostly on fixed incomes. And so we're hearing from people similar to Alex, saying that they're not having their lights on, which is causing danger around the house, danger of trips and falls. We've got people who simply are kind of cutting back on food and not eating as much. We've got people who are not making journeys and not getting out of their house, meeting friends, family, and we all know the difficulties that caused during lockdown on people's mental health. Alex, it's great that you say you have to keep your broadband. It's incredibly important that people stay connected and still can use those digital devices that make so much of our lives doable and give us so much independence. But we're seeing a lot of people having to make the choice that they're choosing food over that connectivity and giving it up. Even down to things like the tips of their white canes are wearing out more frequently, and the supposition is that whilst the price isn't necessarily going up, they may be being made of less robust material and so need to be replaced more often. We're hearing it particularly on our social forums, and it's causing quite a conversation, shall we say. It does seem to be a growing common experience.
Just on the other side of this, David, on the issue of benefits, visually impaired people are amongst those disabled people who are eligible for personal independence payments or disability living allowance, which Alex mentioned. Those benefits are specifically designed to meet the added costs of daily living. Aren't the government entitled to say that is where they recognise the added costs of disability?
They can say that, and to a degree we would agree. You mentioned the rate of increase in April. It was 3.1%, and that was already below inflation. We all know what the inflation rate is now. So in real terms, that benefit has been cut. So one of the things we are doing with the campaign is calling for an urgent reassessment of benefits so that they are uprated in line with the current inflation figures. Now, the government have already said that they will uprate in line with the inflation figures in September, but that won't come through till April. So until after we've had this winter, where people will be facing massively increased heating bills on top of what they're already paying. And if I can add, the other call we're making on government is to reverse some of the changes they've made to the Warm Homes Discount Scheme, which will open again in October, I believe. But through some of the changes they've introduced, quite a significant number of blind and partially sighted people now will not be able to receive that one-off £150 grant when previously they would have done.
I mean, last week, the Minister for Disabled People, Chloe Smith, was asked by Labour MP Kerry McCarthy what her department was doing to offer help specifically to disabled people. This is what she said.
Mr Speaker, 6 million people receiving an eligible disability benefit will receive £150 disability cost of living payment, as well as the £400 energy bill discount. Many will also be eligible for the £650 cost of living payment for lower income households, the first instalments of which are being paid this week.
So the government are saying that they are making, specific provision for disabled people there. What is your answer to that?
Well, we clearly welcome any help that's offered. I think the thing that we would say in response is that that's a one-off payment and this is an ongoing situation. I think I'm right in Martin Lewis recently said that the best projection on the increase in heating and energy costs in October will be 64%. So already that money has gone, and that's only on the heating.
I mean, if people are having problems, what kind of help is the RNIB itself offering?
So we're trying to offer as much help as we possibly can. So we've seen that people are giving up their technology. So we've expanded our grants for technology scheme to try and make sure that people don't lose that lifeline. And we're trying to work on other more practical help. So we've just loaded a page onto our website, which tries to summarise the various mainstream supermarkets and the types of deals that they are offering so that people don't have to try and navigate through a whole load of other information in order to find the best value for some of the basic items that they'll be looking for every week.
Just a final word, Alex. How are you viewing the next few months?
Hopefully, I will personally manage. I am worried about the winter months. I do have a guide dog also, so I've heard to consider as well. But we'll just do the best we can and just hope that something comes into place by the winter.
Alex Rams and David Oldwinkle, thank you both very much indeed. Well, since that interview with David, we have had a statement from the Department for Work and Pensions. They say, we're committed to ensuring disabled people, including those with visual impairments, receive the financial support they need as quickly as possible. Through our £37 billion support package, we're protecting 8 million of the most vulnerable families with at least £1,200 of direct payments this year. And disabled people will receive a separate £150 top-up. Now, the cornea is a very delicate part of the eye, essentially the surface through which you see, so that if the cornea becomes scarred or damaged in any way, then the images you see are increasingly blurred. The cornea can be replaced and the effects can be dramatic, but a persistent problem has been that the supply of donated corneas doesn't keep up with demand. Well, we'll be talking about why not in a moment, but as I said, the results of a successful cornea transplant can be dramatic. Shelley Haig has good reason to know this. Shelley, just explain what happened in your case when you realised that you had a problem.
So I started having sort of a rapid deterioration with my vision in early 2018. I had various appointments with our local eye hospital and I was diagnosed with a condition called polymorphous corneal dystrophy. I believe it's quite a rare condition. It was very debilitating, so my vision did change quite quickly. I could barely see from my right eye. I had quite a lot of pain. It started affecting me going out. I would avoid sunshine, sort of windy days, things like that, because the pain was awful. I was diagnosed with this and put on a waiting list for a corneal transplant. That was supposed to take place, I think, in March 2020. However, because of COVID, that was put on hold. I then had 2 further dates rescheduled because, quite rightly, there is a lack of corneal donors. It was an anxious time for me because I knew that the only way to help me was to have a corneal transplant. And it was getting worse as well. I was losing more and more vision. The pain was getting worse.
And there were increasingly things, presumably, over that period that you couldn't do.
Definitely. I gave up driving. I would only drive if I absolutely had to. Because I had one eye, I could still legally drive, but I would stop to have a young child at home. I wouldn't do sort of family days out because the pain would just increase. Yeah, it wasn't nice at all.
Now, describe the effects of when you actually had the operation.
It was immediate. I had a lot of nerves going into the operation, but coming round from the anaesthetic, I could see. Beforehand, the best way I can describe it is like someone had put Vaseline over my eyes. I could only see shadows, maybe a bit of light, and I could see straight away from opening my eyes, waking up. And it was very emotional. It was. One of the things I particularly remember following my surgery is being able to lie there with my young daughter. I was watching her sleep and realised that I could count the eyelashes on her eyes. And it's little things like that that have dramatically made a difference since having the transplant. And it's just got better and better. And now I'm almost 2 years post-op, if you like now. And I've gone back to doing everything that I used to be able to do.
Shelley, stay with us. Also with us is Kyle Bennett, who's Assistant Director of Tissue and Eye Services at NHS Blood and Transplant. I mean, clearly, Kyle, that's a very heartening story, but surely the problem with the delays is the fear that, you know, perhaps some permanent damage might be being done while you're waiting.
Absolutely. The demand for corneas is probably at unprecedented high. There was a pause during COVID in surgery taking place, which has led to more people joining waiting lists for corneal transplants. And as you said at the beginning of the conversation, we are really struggling to meet that demand when we're simply not getting enough donors to meet the demand that is out there for corneal transplants within the UK. I
mean, how serious is the mismatch between the corneas you need and the corneas you've got? Can you put numbers on it?
So at the moment, we need probably 10 to 15 corneal donors per day, and we're averaging 6 to 7. So we're probably running at about 50% of what we need.
And is it possible to say how long the waiting lists are?
Difficult to put a time on that because it's not just the issue of availability, it's also the theatre time in hospitals, and it varies based on patient to patient. I've heard reports that some patients are waiting up to a year, but I haven't got the exact date, I'm afraid.
This is interesting, and I'd like your comments on it. 1 in 10 people on the NHS organ donor register have indicated that they don't want to donate their corneas, making corneas the part of the body that most people, the majority of people, say they don't wish to donate. Well, why do you think that is?
I think it's a cultural thing within the UK. You often hear people say, you can donate anything after I've died except my corneas. I need to be able to see. So I think it's very much a cultural thing. I think there's a lot of education that is needed for the benefits of corneal transplants. As Shelley's indicated, the transformation it makes to people's lives is huge. So I think the more training and education we can do with the population to increase their awareness of corneal donation and the benefits of corneal donation, certainly to the recipients, the better.
But you do think it's a kind of a psychological thing in a way, the idea that the eye perhaps is so much a part of, perhaps reflects your personality to people?
Absolutely. I think when we take consent for tissues, whether it be for corneas or whether it be for bone or tendon, something else, a number of families will say yes to consent for other tissues, but no to corneas.
I mean, other than education, which of course is often a long process, is there anything else you think practically that can be done to deal with the mismatch?
There's been quite a change in end-of-life pathways, as we've seen through COVID. So more than 50% of people now die in their place of residence, whether that be a care home, their home, or in a hospice, and don't die in hospitals. And most of the potential donors that are referred to us for corneal donation are referred via hospitals. So we're frantically trying to adapt and change our systems to enable us to access those donors or those potential donors that now don't die in hospitals.
Just finally going back to Shelley, what would you say to people who perhaps might be considering organ donation that perhaps could have an effect on their decision?
I would say don't hesitate. Please just do that. Knowing what I know now, if I could, I would donate my corneas. Obviously, I can't. I wouldn't hesitate in doing that. It dramatically changes people's lives.
Shelley Haig and Carl Bennett, thank you both very much indeed. And that's it for today. Do contact us with your comments and your queries. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk, leave your voice messages on 01618 836 1338, or go to our website bbc.co.uk/in touch. From me, Peter Wight, producer Beth Hemmings, and studio managers Colin Sutton and Simon Highfield, goodbye.
Scaffolding and Skips news, week commencing the 25th of July 2022.
And here is the Newport area. The Old Mill, St Cross Lane. Exchange House, St Cross Lane. Newport Minster, St Thomas's Square. 15 High Street. 127 and 128 Superdrug, High Street. Isle of Wight County Club, 18A St James Square. Halifax, 116 High Street. Classic House, number 6 Chain Lane. 20 West Street. 8485 High Street.
Cowes, 132 St Mary's Road.
Ryde, the Crown Inn Pub, St Thomas's Square and the High Street. Ryde Masonic Hall, John Street. 42 George Street. 10 Wyndham House, Melville Street. The Sloop Inn, Mill Square. Jack's, 75 Union Street. 21A and 22A Cross Street.
Ryde Skips, 45 Bettersworth Road. The Cottage, Upper Green Road, St Helens.
Seaview, Warren Boats, Blewett Avenue. 4A Ship House Pier Road.
Seaview Skips, Buccaneers Ferry Road.
Sandown, 20 High Street. 77A Carnival Shop, High Street.
Ventnor Seawall, Belgrave Road. Carousel, Belgrave Road.
East Cowes, 29 Alfred Street.